All right. I think I'm live now. It's going to be a few minutes before you guys, well, maybe not minutes, but who knows. Thanks for joining us tonight on this Wednesday night, this stormy Wednesday night, if you are where I'm at my undisclosed location. The picture that you're looking at, might as well just talk about that now because it might look like a weird picture. That's a picture I took today at the bunker where I'm broadcasting from. It is the world's most unlucky, killer bee. It's a bee that impaled herself trying to get to Ocotillo nectar or pollen or whichever. I'm, to be honest, not sure. It was an interesting thing to find. Nature is always full of surprises. And as I said on Instagram, because I posted there, if you don't follow me on Instagram, you should check it out, black_pilled. I'm sure there's a metaphor in there somewhere. In fact, I'm pretty sure the metaphor would be similar to the metaphor of rat poison that I've talked about in the past, where sometimes that which you are drawn to, that which tastes good, that you find delicious, that you might even are instinctively drawn to, isn't always good for you, or at least doesn't come without risks. So, at any rate, that has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about tonight. What I wanted to talk about is, and this actually also comes back from my Instagram account. I posted a photo, and unfortunately I don't have it here with me, but it's not a very complicated photo, so it won't be that hard. It won't take 1,000 words to describe it. I posted a photo. It was just a beach. It might have been Long Beach from the 70s. And there were just a bunch of, people walking up and down the street. And there was this guy wearing a T-shirt with big, bold letters. It just said, "Fuck off." And I captioned this photo something along the lines of, once we allowed for people like this to go unpunished, essentially, we had already lost. And of course, out of the woodwork, I got a bunch of these libertarians going, "Oh, free speech means defending speech that you don't like." And I have a little bit of sympathy because not that long ago, I would have held the same exact views. But the fact of the matter is, there's no such thing as free speech. Nothing's free. Everything comes at a cost. And if you're not imposing costs on speech, the cost is imposed on you. So in the case of this guy walking down the street with a T-shirt in big, bold red letters that just said "fuck off," he didn't pay any price. He didn't pay the cost of that speech. The cost, therefore, was transferred to the people around him. The cost was paid by the parents who had their children with them that had to deal with their kids seeing that, or even adults who had their nice walk down the beach disrupted by this asshole. And it's funny because the same people that sit there and look at these black and white photos of the 1940s and 50s and say, "Oh, we have to go back, we want to go back," were the same people that were trying to defend this guy's T-shirt, not realizing that if that guy had worn that exact same T-shirt in any of these situations that any of these photos that they're ogling over, "Oh, look at how beautiful it was in the 1940s and 50s, everyone's so well dressed," and what do you think would have happened to that guy if he had walked down the street in 1945 or in 1950 wearing that shirt? Who do you think would have paid the cost of his speech then? Now, I can only assume that everyone kind of knows the answer to that question. And that's what I meant when I said that once we as a society just allowed that and just decided that, oh, that's his free speech, that's his free expression. You know, free speech is about just letting anything that, like anyone and everyone, to say whatever they want all the time with no consequences whatsoever. Now, something else happened today. Now, actually, before we get into that, I'll talk about what happened today. Apparently, there's an organization that's in charge of which emojis are distributed to all the different devices. Right? It's like I don't know what it's called, but it's like the International Emoji Association or something like that. And Tinder, a couple weeks ago was excited because they'd been pressuring this organization apparently to release interracial couples as part of these emojis. And today, I believe it was today, at least this is when I became aware of it. Today, they released one of their new emojis, which was a man with a mustache. Of course, you can be whichever race you'd like to be, with a mustache wearing a wedding veil. So basically a male bride. And it just made me think that one thing you can guarantee is that they will never make, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think that I am. They will likely never make an emoji where it's a man wearing a hijab. Now, why is that, do you think? Why is it that they're perfectly willing and able and unashamed to and even promote the fact that they've released this man in a traditionally Christian wedding veil? They have no problem with that. But they wouldn't do a man wearing a hijab. Now, it's really simple. There's no cost. They're not paying the cost of having a man in a wedding veil. But you better goddamn believe they'd pay a cost. They'd pay a price, rather. There would be a cost if they had a man in a hijab. And that's because the Muslims would impose a cost. I don't know if you can hear my cat meowing in the background. I've got see, it's starting to warm up. And the lizards are waking up, and the bugs are waking up, and the snakes are waking up. And so he keeps finding all these critters I don't know what he's found now. Hopefully not a scorpion, but you're on your own, bud. If you find a scorpion, I'm not going to save you. At any rate, another example of this was several years ago. This has been true for a long time. You might remember, maybe you don't. It's been a long time now. It's probably maybe like 10 years. But South Park was going to do an episode where they were going to show Muhammad. Like, that's all they were going to do. They weren't actually doing anything too crazy. In fact, they'd already shown Muhammad in a previous episode where there was the religious super friends, where Moses and Joseph Smith and Muhammad and Vishnu and Jesus were like these super friends, these crime-fighting super friends, and it was no big deal because at the time when that episode was released in America, Muslims were not imposing costs for doing that. So there was no price to pay for that speech. Or rather, they didn't have to pay the price for that speech. You could argue that society did by blaspheming everyone's religious figure at the same time and making light of it. I mean, maybe that sabotaged the faith of who knows how many people, right? So maybe there was a cost, but they didn't pay it. In fact, they probably benefited financially quite a bit for that episode. But anyway, years later, and I think it was after the Charlie Hebdo thing, or it might have been some incident had already happened, right? Muslims imposed a very high price, a very big cost to blaspheming Muhammad. And I don't remember which time it was, but it had definitely happened. And the South Park creators, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, decided they were going to, in opposition to this attack on free speech, they were going to make an episode where they showed Muhammad. And Comedy Central said, we're not going to show this. If you put Muhammad in there, we are going to censor that part of the show. And they argued back and forth. And if you know anything about South Park, they actually turn their episodes around really quick. There's even a documentary about it. I think they actually write, produce, and voice their whole episode in something like a week almost. Like that's how, especially back then. I don't know what it's like now. I haven't watched South Park in a while, but that's how they would address current events so quickly. A lot of these shows like The Simpsons or what have you, even though they're saying their animation off to Korea, it still takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of. It's also kind of bloated because Matt Stone, Trey Parker are libertarians. They run their own production shop, and so they don't have to deal with all the union stuff. And if you're producing something like The Simpsons, anyway, it takes a really long time. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Long story short, they were addressing this when the wound was still fresh, when the price had just been paid, you might say. And to make a point, and they made a great point. They made the exact point that I'm making tonight. Because it wasn't just Muhammad that they were going to feature in this episode. They were also, which by the way, the part of the episode that showed Muhammad knocked on a door. The door was open. Muhammad was just standing there, perfectly normal, nothing weird, nothing offensive. It was just showing Muhammad, right? Just to make a point that, hey, we're going to show him even though you're saying we can't show him. And then at the end of the episode, to show the difference, to show that because Comedy Central ended up cucking, right? Comedy Central forced them to censor that part of the show out so that when that part of the show happened, just a black screen came up that said, Comedy Central has decided not to let you see this scene, blah, blah, blah. And then it went back to the show, right? Well, then to make a point that it wasn't just any religious figures that you weren't allowed to show, that something was special about Muhammad. They didn't just show Jesus like a normal person. Like, if you've seen South Park, Jesus is like a regular character. They didn't just show Jesus. They showed Jesus literally shitting on people, including then President Bush, and just shitting all over the place, and trying to make it as close to blasphemy as possible, or at least beyond blasphemy, really. But the point I think were trying to make was, oh, look at Comedy Central. They're so afraid. They're so afraid of the Muslims. They don't care about censorship, or protecting deities, but they're afraid of the Muslims. And I would say, yeah, because the Muslims were imposing a cost. And the Christians have been unable to impose any costs for a long time now, and certainly then. Now, that wasn't always the case, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, a lot of people will say, well, one of the reasons why we can't impose costs, we can't enforce social norms anymore, is we're so atomized, right? Which that's certainly why it's not easy. And it was certainly a deliberate thing. Because with diversity, you're not dealing with a monolithic population that's, at 90+% Christian, like maybe several decades ago. Now you are, if you piss off Christians, practicing Christians, you're talking about, it's a minority group at this point. I don't know what the exact numbers are. I'm sure there's lots of people that self-identify as Christian, but then if you ask them how often they go to church, you know what I mean? And anyone that's been to church recently knows, for the most part, it's like old people, right? With some exceptions. It's not like it was before. It's not even like it was in the 90s, or even in the late 80s. One of the things I'm still working on, because, good Lord, there's a lot of Simpsons episodes. I was like, I'm going to watch, because there's 30 years of this show, I'm going to watch every episode of The Simpsons. Not realizing they did like 20 fucking episodes a season, or more. Sometimes there's like 22. Anyway, there's a lot. And I was like, I'm going to watch all of them, and I'm going to show like how it's kind of changed, because it will either, in some cases, it'll lead the shift in the Overton window. And in some cases, it'll follow. But either way, you'll see it. You'll see it happen. You'll see the difference in what was acceptable the first season of The Simpsons versus 30 years later. And I thought it'd be very interesting. Like, see how the characters evolve to fit the times, right? And I'm not going to get too much into that because I still have a lot of episodes to go. But one of the things that struck me was that in the first season, Marge and Homer and Bart and Lisa and Maggie, as a family, they all go to church. And of course, they mock it. The creators of The Simpsons aren't Christian. They're Jewish. And they mock Christianity literally at every chance they can get. There's an entire character built around mocking Christianity, Flanders. But they knew that they couldn't go right out the gate doing that, right? So the first season of The Simpsons, they had to play to their audience. And their audience, it would be normal to see a family going to church every Sunday. That was the demo. My family went to church every Sunday at that time. And a lot of my friends, same thing. And not like church friends. I mean, like friends from school. It was a pretty normal thing. I had, Catholic friends, Mormon friends, Protestant friends. And it was a pretty normal thing for kids to go to school or church on Sunday. So they knew that the cost for in the case of The Simpsons. And I know this is kind of a tangent, and I might even have a hard time remembering why I went off on this tangent, but it doesn't matter. The cost for The Simpsons at the time, had they gone hard at Christianity, would have been loss of viewership. And The Simpsons' rise to popularity was so dramatic, like especially that's one thing that I'm and I don't want to make this about The Simpsons, but just one thing I wanted to bring up too is if you ever watched the little short versions of the Simpsons that played on the Tracy Ullman show, which I watched all those too, they're kind of terrible. They're not good. The animation's not good. The writing's not good. It's just not that good. I mean, it's kind of cutesy, I guess. And I don't remember the Tracy Ullman show. It's kind of before my time. I think I saw some reruns on Comedy Central like when I was real young, and I don't remember it being remarkable. I don't even know. I don't know if it even was on very many seasons. But it's weird to me that you had this really not that great cartoon playing during a really not that great comedy show, and then all of a sudden, like like within the first 2 seasons, they were getting cameos from like members of the Beatles. They were getting A-list actors dropping in and doing cameos in this cartoon that kind of just came out of nowhere. But anyway, another example of this, of calculated cost, because like I said, there's no such thing as free speech. Nothing is free. There's always a cost. But another example of this would be Twitter banning Farrakhan. Twitter banned Farrakhan, what, like a month ago? It was pretty recently. And I think it's because the cost of keeping him was, at least according, from their perspective, was beginning to be higher than the cost of banning him. Because they have two groups now that would impose costs in either scenario. If you get rid of Farrakhan, you have his followers get angry, which are part of a protected class, and do include some celebrities. I think I've seen Snoop Dogg stand up for Farrakhan, but he's increasingly less relevant. Snoop Dogg's going to be getting pretty old these days. But all the same, I mean that's the cost that Twitter was facing, was the backlash from this protected class. Well, what was the other protected class that was imposing costs? Well, they impose costs so high, I can't even necessarily name them, or my stream might get shut down. So that should tell you the power, the high price this group is capable of forcing others to pay for their speech. This group is capable of imposing costs when they encounter speech that they don't like. And in the case of Farrakhan, you might say that the groups like ADL beat the Nation of Islam in terms of who was able to impose the highest cost. So over and over and over again, I think if you look at speech and you look at censorship, you're going to encounter that over and over and over again. It's going to be, well, just look at my book, which, by the way, is available on Barnes & Noble for now. The link is in the description. It'll never go back to Amazon. They closed my account. And, fuck them. But it is available on Barnes & Noble, at least for right now. I'm working on trying to get the audiobook somewhere. It's been in the approval process for quite some time, and if it's anything like the Audible one, it could be a while, but we'll see what happens. But it's the same situation. The cost that I would be able to impose on Amazon was not as high as the costs that groups like the ADL would be able to impose. think back to, and if you think that the ADL doesn't, I mean, some of these might be friendly partnerships, right? Like it is with YouTube. The ADL is a partner with YouTube, trusted flagger. I don't know how it all works, but it's not like they have to threaten the people at YouTube. And I'm gonna mute myself so I can cough for a second. Okay, I'm back. The that is not the case though with everybody. As we saw, I think it was Iceland that was going to ban, and Iceland had no synagogues, like virtually no Jewish population, and they were going to ban male genital mutilation, which is a part of the Jewish religion. And they were told, there's a famous leaked email, I believe it was the ADL. It might have been another organization. I don't want to say for sure it was the ADL. But it was definitely a Jewish organization that essentially told the government that if you ban male genital mutilation, then we will use our connections in the media and in governments around the world to decimate your tourist industry. The cost they were going to impose, and this isn't really speech. What we're really talking about here is we're talking about power dynamics. It doesn't just apply to speech. Like I said, nothing's free. Passing a law is not free. Everything comes with consequences. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. But at any rate, I don't know how that eventually ended up panning out. I don't know if they cucked or not. I do know almost immediately after this, they sent a rabbi out there and started establishing a synagogue and setting up shop. So that because they clearly didn't have as much influence there as they might have wanted, for it to even get so far as to even get the discussion going that they're going to ban male genital mutilation, right? So, while diversity does make it harder, or first, let's talk about something else first. What do I mean by imposing costs? What do I mean by, what could Christians do? You might think that, oh, well, it's just not the Christian way. The Muslims are a religion of conquest. It's almost part of their religion to wage war against their opposition, and you're kind of right. And Christianity has lost a lot of that, largely because they've been surrounded by Christians. And when you're in a society where everyone shares the same values, you kind of don't need to be as confrontational. And there's a lot of other things that have happened, obviously, that have, like the feminization of the culture in general has, well, I think, been all about this dynamic. It's been about making people afraid of conflict, making people afraid of confrontation, so that they can't impose costs. Because they'll be afraid of what people might think of them. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want people to think I'm racist. Yada. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. But this hasn't always been the case in America. I've talked about the Hays Code before. I did a video where I kind of talked about it. I didn't really go into too much detail, but I kind of gave you the short version. I believe it was called Pawn Breaking Your Future. It was about the pawnbroker, which was the first movie to really defy the Hays Code. And what the Hays Code was, it wasn't, a lot of people make the mistake, they think it was like a government regulation. They think that the Hays Code was something that was a cost that was being imposed by the federal government. It wasn't. It was a cost being imposed by the Catholic Church and by other Christian organizations. They got together and they were watching these films come out of Hollywood. And you got to think about how much things have changed. This happened like in the 40s, I believe, or it might have even been before that, like late 30s. You know, at the same time that you had Weimar Germany going on at a much lower, less extreme rate, you could say that degeneracy was bubbling up here in America as well. And certainly in other European countries. It just happened to be the epicenter was Berlin. That was just the capital of the degeneracy. But that shit was bubbling up everywhere in the Western world. Partially because of who was leaving Germany and coming to these other countries and bringing it with them. So, and by the way, many of those people going to Hollywood. But if you've watched pre-code films, and there are some films, shockingly enough, you know, people never encounter these because I don't think most people are watching movies from like the 1920s and whatnot. But there's like full frontal nudity, and you'd be surprised. There's a lot of, I mean, there's silent films with nudity that were, I don't know how wide of a release they were, but they were expensive to make, especially back then. But that wasn't really what the Hays Code was responding to. That's not really the cost that they weren't trying to restrain that kind of speech necessarily. Well, certainly that would be included, right? But if you look at just pre-code films, as they're called, there's not like I mean, it would be rated G today. Really. It would be rated G. There's no foul language. There's no nudity most of the time. I mean, there's women in like really old, not very revealing underwear. You know, occasionally you might see like a woman's naked back, like she'll turn away from the camera and then take her shirt off, and you know, stuff like that. But it would be rated G today. There would be no it would be monetized. There'd be, well, not that that's really any indicator of how modest something is. But the Hays Code, the reason why the Catholics and the other Christian groups that got together to rein in the degeneracy coming from Hollywood, it wasn't about hardcore sex scenes. It wasn't about even homosexuality. I mean, even though there was a little bit of that creeping into some of the stuff back then too. You'd be surprised. Like it started out innocent, like, oh, it's just a guy wearing a dress because it's a gag. It's just a gag. See, this is why I get upset with people that when they were commenting on my post about the guy wearing the T-shirt that said "fuck off," and they're like, "Oh, it's just a shirt, bro. Chill out, dude. It's just a shirt, bro. They just want to get married, bro." I mean, I understand if you're like 15 years old, and I'm sure that, you know, some of my Instagram followers are like that, right? Where you don't get it. You haven't lived long enough to see it go anywhere. So if your point of reference is it's just a shirt, I still think that's unacceptable. Right? That's not the only reason. I'm not saying, well, yeah, it's just a shirt and just the shirt's fine. I just don't like what the shirt leads to. No, fuck the shirt. I don't want the shirt. I don't want the shirt. But also, if you do want the shirt, you're following my Instagram page, you probably don't like the other things I'm posting. You probably don't like, well, if you've seen my Instagram page, you'll know what I'm talking about. The stream of awful shit that I encounter on a daily basis that I share with the world. The state of Western society. You probably don't like it. And the shirt leads to that. Just as sure as they just want to get married, bro, leads to trans kids and beyond. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. I mean, the RNC has embraced transsexuals and drag queens so fast that like it's and so completely. It's almost like you're the crazy one if you point out that this isn't something that you guys stood for even like 5 years ago. That's how fast they were able to like just erase everyone's memory and replace it. But I digress. Back to the costs. The Hays Code, all it really said was, we'll get all these people, all of our clergy will get together and we'll rally our people, and we won't just boycott your films as in, oh yeah, well, I'm just not going to watch it. Or like I saw something funny on Twitter today where I don't know if you've heard this, and I don't know how accurate it is, but The Hill, which is usually pretty accurate, is reporting that the Super Bowl halftime is going to feature drag queens. And I look down on people that are obsessed with professional sports. I just do. Playing sports is masculine. And it's something I did when I was younger. It's something that it does build character. It's good. It's something that you should make your kids do. But watching a Jewish-owned millionaire in spandex throw a ball and memorizing how fast he can run and how many yards he ran last week and just having no clue as to what the fuck is going on around you that actually matters. I'm just so full of contempt for these fucking people. And you have these halftime shows, which are always degenerate, but now they're going to have drag queens. And someone replied to that tweet, the neocon says, I'll just turn away during that part. Haha, owned, NFL. And that's the problem, is that's literally what, and you know what, they're not going to, most people aren't going to turn away. They'll complain and they'll act shocked. And I guarantee you, after Super Bowl Sunday, if they do have drag queens, you're going to have all these ass-blasted boomers on Twitter. I can't believe they don't know their audience if they think this is something. No, they know their audience. They know their audience. They know their audience is a bunch of people who are willing to watch millionaires in spandex throw a ball back and forth at each other. And then every, minute and a half, if not less, watch like 5 minutes of commercials from billionaires trying to sell you the new product for you to get excited about. And then go back to the millionaires throwing a ball back and forth to the sound of NPCs, thousands of them, that just paid $50 for a fucking hot dog, cheering, face paint on their faces, men wearing the last names of other men on their shirts. They know their audience. They know 5 years ago, as a conservative, you were like, hell no, I don't want trans Republicans. And now you're like, well, that Lady MAGA, she's not so bad. She's kind of based. They know their audience. And they won't pay any cost. There's not going to be any costs imposed on them. No one's going to impose any costs on the NFL for doing it. Now, they might have a few years ago, but they're really good at this calculus. They're really good. I mean, it's a science. It's not like there's just some guy going, yeah, you know what? You know what, Lenny? I think they're ready for drag queens. Let's put drag queens in the halftime show. No, it's not like that. I mean, these guys have been studying ratings since the beginning of television. I mean, television literally was. I mean, have you seen Mad Men? It's obviously it's fiction, but it somewhat accurately depicts how and why a lot of television shows were even produced. It was produced specifically for the purpose of selling a product, because the advertiser was paying for the show to be made. You know, a lot of people think that when they make a television show, and I guess as studios have gotten bigger, maybe you have a little more of this, but certainly in like the 40s and 50s, when you were getting a lot of TV shows first coming out, they thought that, like, you know, it's just a bunch of writers and artists getting together, and they're like, you know what, I've got a great idea for a story. It'll be great entertainment, you know, for the family, and everyone's going to love it, and it's going to be great, and it's going to add to our culture. It's going to be so good, in fact, that companies are going to want to have their brand inserted in the commercial breaks. We'll make these little breaks, and it'll be so good. The way we'll pay for it is we'll get like these cigarette companies and whoever else to just put in their little advertisement, and they'll just be lining up to do this, and we'll charge them a lot of money because we'll have a lot of eyeballs on the screen. That's not how it worked. I mean, you had a lot of input if you were an advertiser. You're paying for the fucking show. Why do you think when the left was imposing, and you don't see this quite as much these days. I mean, you kind of saw it with Tucker, right? Why do you think that the left, when they want to impose a cost on a mainstream person that they don't like, they go after the advertisers? See, it's not like with YouTube, right? Like if they go after my quote-unquote advertisers, I don't have any interaction with these people. In fact, there's probably advertisers that would want to advertise on this that, you know, are not able to, right? Because of algorithms and who knows what else. Because of this faceless thing. That's not how it works in TV. You know, it's not like, I mean, to a certain extent, you do have sales departments and like the local affiliates. That's kind of how it works. So like, if you're NBC though, like if you're NBC, and you don't really have local affiliates as much because everything's going to like cable and, well, I guess the local cable companies still do this, but if you're a local affiliate, NBC, like NBC channel, 4 in Albuquerque, I think is a real one, like KKOB or whatever it is, and if that's, I could be totally wrong. I think it was channel 4. You get because you get the show to air essentially for free, and then the way that you cover your costs as a broadcast station in Albuquerque is that you get X amount of 30-second spots in the commercial breaks that you can sell to like local people, to like, furniture stores or whatever, and that's how you make your money. So it's a little more like YouTube at that level. But at the top, and especially for cable, for like satellite and stuff like that, Fox News, that's not how it works. Or even people like Rush Limbaugh, for example. Rush Limbaugh was forced to apologize to some uppity Georgetown leftists that wanted free abortion pills Um, I've actually met her, and I'm blanking on her name. She's such a piece of shit, though. Uh, I met her at a party in D.C. Oh, what was her name? Anyway, she was like a big deal at the time. And by the way, that's when I also learned how incestuous that town was, because I was at a libertarian party, and here was this woman who was clearly the opposite, and they were like, these people were like ogling her and so excited because she had just been in the national news. Oh my God, it's that Sandra Fluke. That's her name. Everyone was like, oh my God, it's Sandra Fluke. I think Hannity was just talking about her. Oh, let's go talk to Sandra Fluke. Let's go shake her hand. And I'm like, fuck that bitch. Like, why is she even here? But anyway, Sandra Fluke, whether you remember this or not, on national, this was during the Obama years, so it's been a few years, went on national TV, and I don't remember exactly what her reach was, but for whatever reason became like a meme, or at least kind of like the Greta, the Greta of free abortion pills at the time. I mean, it wasn't very long. I think she was in the spotlight for like a month. So you had Sandra Fluke uh, essentially saying that she wanted you to pay for her abortions. And Rush Limbaugh, I think, called her a slut, maybe in so many words. But it wasn't like, it wouldn't matter even if it was. But it wasn't like insanity or anything like that. He was just like, well, maybe if you're not a slut, then we don't have to pay for your abortions or something like that. It was just like, it was pretty tame, right? I mean, it's Rush Limbaugh, right? He's like the alpha boomer. And it was like a week later that they had imposed. Now, I think it came out later that they were using like bot farms and people weren't ready or didn't understand bot farms yet. But what they did, it was a bunch of leftists that organized and went after his advertisers and said, we're never going to buy your products. We're going to tell everyone not to buy your products. We're going to get them, all these retweets from bots. But, back then, I don't think people were as savvy about that. So they were just, these marketing people would see all these retweets and freak the fuck out. And be like, oh my God, no one's going to buy, Bull and Branch sheets or whatever the fuck it was, right? And Rush Limbaugh apologized. I think he did like a little mini apology tour because his sponsors have a say in what he does. So they were able to impose a cost. See what I'm getting? There is no free speech. You're talking to a guy who had his book banned. There's no such thing as free speech. Everything has a cost. It's just a matter of who is allowed or forced to pay the cost, pay the price. And right now, Christians aren't imposing any costs. And they haven't for a really long time. I remember even just as a kid, just watching just normal television, including The Simpsons. And I mean, just thinking, and this is before we were even that polarized. I'm talking like, the 90s, looking at stuff and going, it sure seems like a common theme is making fun of Christians. And it's okay. Like it seems like almost everything that comes out of Hollywood, whether it's a television show, whether it's a documentary. I remember there was a documentary, and I should do a video on this. There was a documentary called like Bible Camp or something like that, where they found like the most extreme evangelical, like crazy Christians they could find, and then like lied to them and infiltrated their little Bible camp and made them look super. I mean, they were I'll be honest, they were kind of crazy. It was an easy target, right? But they amplified it. But I just kept seeing this all over the place. Music, same thing, right? And I didn't know really why. And it's not just because Christians don't impose a cost. I think that another reason, obviously, is who's behind the producing this content, right? But as I talked about with The Simpsons, even if that's the content they want to produce, even if their aim is to just dilute and wear down the glue that holds communities like Christian communities together in order to atomize them and make them less powerful, you kind of have to have that erosion already to some extent already have taken place for you to even begin. Because as I described with The Simpsons, like the first season, they were all going to church and they mocked it a little bit, but not heavily. Now by like season 5, they were openly mocking it. Whereas before they were poking it with a fork. They were taking a sledgehammer to it by like season 5, right? But it's because they were testing the waters, Well, we didn't pay a cost when we poked it with a fork. So maybe let's see what I can get away with this time. And you just keep doing that. What can I get away with this time without having to pay any price? What can I do this time without having to pay any price? And I think they've come to the conclusion now they can, and are they wrong? That they can do whatever they want. And there's really not going to be any cost imposed on them. What's going to happen to you? What's going to happen to you if you make a movie or a TV show? I mean, we don't have to ask what if. It's already been done. I mean, you can make countless movies and TV shows where they don't just mock what's good. They promote what's bad. Nothing happens. The mistake that people make, and I think it's because they understand this concept, right? They understand this concept of imposing costs, and so they're, you hear the phrase, go woke, go, or get woke, go broke. And, maybe there's a couple instances where that kind of happened, right? But ultimately, it's not effective enough to just simply, I'm going to turn my head during that part of the halftime show. You think the NFL gives a fuck if you turn your head during that part of the halftime show? Like that's all the self-control you have? Is like, well, I'll still watch it because I still need to get my sports ball. I still want to see, what Pepsi has in store for me this year with their $1 trillion commercial. I want to see the Super Bowl commercial. I only watch it for the commercials. You know what you're saying when you say that? I mean, that's worse. I only watch it for the literal programming. I don't care about the stimuli that's supposed to hold me over till the next batch of brainwashing. I just like the brainwashing. I'll just sit on the couch and I'll just eat nachos until the brainwashing starts, and then I'll pay attention. I don't even watch The Millionaires. The NFL doesn't give a fuck if you turn your head. And Netflix largely doesn't care if a small number of us cancels Netflix. You're also dealing with people with so much money. There's not even like a monetary incentive anymore. Twitter being a perfect example. Twitter was bleeding hundreds of millions of dollars for years until they finally made a tiny bit of profit. YouTube still loses money. YouTube's never made money. The guy who sold it to Google made money, but that's it. So how are you gonna, how are you gonna pressure YouTube? You can't. Not, from a monetary standpoint. Even when they did the Hays Code, it wasn't just, we're not going to go see your movies and we're going to tell our friends not to see your movies, which, by the way, was a lot more effective back then because a lot more people listened to their clergy and a lot more clergy were on board with this kind of a thing and not welcoming it like a lot of clergy are today. So it was a different time, right? So it was effective, but that's the thing is not only was it a different time where something like that was more effective, that's not where it stopped. It wasn't just, oh, we're not going to watch your movies and we're going to tell our friends not to watch your movies. They were going to actively, and did in some instances, show up to the theaters and intimidate people away from the theater. So that, like, if you go, oh, let's go watch that new movie because you're some degenerate, and you show up and there's like 100 people outside the theater yelling at everyone who goes in to see the movie and calling them degenerates and holding signs that say you're going to hell. You're not going to scare everyone away, but you're going to definitely make more of an impact than just I'm not going to watch that movie. I mean, you're probably not the target demo anyway. So not only by just saying, well, I'm going to boycott Netflix, which you should do. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. You should definitely not pay for Netflix or any of these services. Right? But not only should you not pay for Netflix and try to encourage people, as many people as you know, to do the same, you need to find a way of increasing the cost. Because that's not a big enough cost. It's just not. It's not a big enough cost. They don't care. And you can say, well, diversity made it harder. And hey, and I'm not saying have a jihad against Netflix, but it's not like Muslims have a lot of institutional power. You know what I mean? They don't. They're still a really tiny part of our population. And as I just mentioned, that said, you're still not going to have the hijab gay guy emoji. I mean, you're not. And it's not because they have institutional power. I mean, they got some money, obviously. The Saudis and the. If you've seen photos, if you ever want to feel like the West is like the new third world country, just take a look at some photos of cities in the Middle East that have oil money. If you ever want to be humbled. Now, at the same time, realize as you look at these cities, it's not exactly like Arabs were designing these cities. They were just paying for them. But all the same, and I happen to know this. I know for a fact that they're paying Western contractors and companies to come in there and do all this because they don't have the expertise to do it at all. But all the same, I mean, look at Dubai, for example. You ever see a picture of that futuristic looking shit? I mean, yeah, there's nothing in America that even comes like, I mean, that looks like it does. It just looks 100 years further advanced than anything you'll find in America. It just does. I'm not saying that I'd rather live there than America. I'm just saying, look, we've already fallen behind. So they have money. And that is one of the reasons we don't have the ability to impose costs. It is. We lack money We lack organizations. We lack leadership in religious organizations. I can't think of very many, if or really any, uh, of the big denominations that that in fact quite the opposite, that stand for what we believe in, or that would act in our interests even a little bit. I see them embracing this. I see them looking at it as a financial thing. It's kind of like, honestly, they're looking at it the same way the governments are. I think the religions are looking at it, the governments are saying, and obviously they cause the problem. So I'm talking middle management government people, not the people pulling the strings. But when you get bureaucrats looking at the falling population in the West, what do they say? Oh, we need replacements. We need replacements, or all of our social services are going to collapse and blah, blah, blah. We got to import all these people because people aren't having kids, right? Like that's what they're saying, right? It's just math. They need to make up for all the people who aren't having kids, and we got to get them from somewhere, and it's not our fault you're not having kids, and yada, yada, yada. Well, I mean, you don't think that churches aren't kind of doing the exact same thing? You don't think that a lot of these, especially these smaller churches that are bending the knee to the LBGTQXY, whatever the hell it is at this point, lobby, you don't think that one of the practical reasons that they're doing this isn't for the numbers? I mean, if your society, and in this case it's not population, it's just population that can feel comfortable in a house of God, right? That number's going down. I mean, if you stick to what Christianity has been teaching for 1,000+ years, you're really limiting who's going to be able to go and attend your church. So you're going to make changes so that you can have a replacement policy. If you have a church in San Francisco, I mean, who's going to be going? How full is that chapel going to be unless you make some major changes to your theology? Now, obviously, to me, that signals to me that every one of these church leaders are false prophets. You ever watch, and this would be a great movie. I actually love this movie. There Will Be Blood. And maybe I'll do I just rewatched it because I was going to do a video on it, and then I got sidetracked with more Simpsons stuff. And just, man, it's been a really, I know I haven't posted a lot lately, and I apologize for that. It's just the weather changed. Like, it was horrific for a while, and then it got really nice. And Carl's house has so much shit that has to be done just to get it to where it's not dangerous. And I'm just trying to get all that done because I can't. Once it's not dangerous, it's like not a big deal. Like I'm not worried about it being pretty and all this stuff. I just need it to like not be like a hazard. But anyway, in There Will Be Blood, which maybe I'll do a video on. In the last scene, I'm sure I don't think I'm. Spoiler alert! Cover your ears. Well, actually, you won't even know who these people are, so it probably won't matter. But you've got Eli, who's like the charismatic Christian, kind of shyster, grifter kind of guy, and Daniel Plainview, the oil man, and it's their final confrontation. And Eli is asking him for money, and Daniel Plainview, who is an awesome character. I drink your milkshake. Love that guy. That'll make sense only if you've seen it. I'll just sound like a crazy person if you haven't. He says to Eli, I will only lend you the money or give you the money if you say, I am a false prophet. God is a superstition. And he does. He says it. And reveals that he's just been a grifter all of these years. Which I don't think's ruining anything for the movie, because it's not like you believe otherwise if you've seen this character. And every time I see one of these churches change the rules to broaden their customer base, that's the scene that plays in my head. Just this false prophet who cares only about making a living off of religion. Because if you really believed in what you were supposed to be, teaching, which by the way, let's face it, these are the same people that were supposed to be the ones preserving this ideology and transmitting it to the young people. Some of the responsibility lies with them. You can't just be like, well, no one comes anymore. Well, maybe it's because of something you did. Maybe it's because, not because you failed to update, to where you started accepting gay priests, but maybe because you failed to instill faith in anybody, So that's a huge problem right now, is we don't have any religious institutions that really are there for us, that are really there to, and I'm sure, look, I don't want to say none. I'm sure there's little exceptions here and there. I'm not aware of very many of them. I mean, I know of a few anomalies, but and not really a lot of, none of the big ones. There's a few that are less cucked than others, right? But not, generally speaking, they're all trending in the same direction as degeneracy. It's almost like, you've got the Republicans are like, well, they used to be like 20 years behind the Democrats, and then it was 10. See, it's speeding up. As we circled the drain, the closer you get to the drain, the faster you spin, And so the Republicans used to be like 20 years behind, then it was 10, then it's 5, now it's like 3. Or pretty soon it won't even be that. And in fact, it's almost like the Democrats have to keep like lurching further and further to the left just to differentiate themselves. But religious institutions, they're kind of following that same path, where religious institutions were always more, I don't know, I hate the term, but more conservative, we'll say, for lack of a better term, than the political parties, right? In fact, it was the religious institutions that would have to impose costs on the political parties and keep them conservative. But now we're seeing that they're kind of just trending in the same direction. They're just trailing a little bit behind. And the fact that, if you want, speaking of false prophets, the fact that Donald Trump has surrounded himself on many occasions with not just false prophets, but like obvious false prophets. Like, what's that woman's name? We're talking, literal televangelists, not like as a pejorative. Like, that's really what they are. Like, they're televangelists. And to see him surround himself with televangelists to get the evangelical vote, we're talking about these are terrible people. And oh, you're just being naive, Devin. He has to make alliances with people. It's just practical. Maybe. But that's not what being a leader is. And at the end of the day, that's the problem. is we don't have leadership. We don't have leadership. We don't have organization. We don't have funding. We have YouTube channels for now. TikTok. So why am I saying all this? Oh, all you're doing is complaining. You're not giving us any solutions. In order to have solutions, you need to understand the problem. And I'm not the kind of guy who claims to have the solution to every problem. I'm much better at seeing exploits in the system than I am at building a new system. I can tell you how your current system can be exploited and ruined. And I can see other people doing it. So if you propose a new system, I can tell you the holes. I can be like, well, if I was trying to, that's just how my brain works. I was kind of a delinquent when I was younger, and I've always had that brain where like as soon as you subject me to a system, I look for ways of weaseling out of it. I just do. A lot of my friends are hackers. Professionally, not like black hat, but like they work for big companies and look for the, penetration testing, that kind of thing, right? Where you just look for. That's not what I do. That's not my expertise. I mean I know of it. By no means am I like a hacker, but that's how my brain works. And a lot of my friends, same thing. But I can't just use that as an excuse either. I can't just be like, well, I don't know. I can just tell you what's wrong. Because you're right. We do need some solutions, and no one's stepping up. And all of us need to. And I hope I've explained or at least laid out a major power vacuum. Or I don't know if that's the right word or term. An area where there's very little power, or we just don't have power at all, really. Let's just face it. Our movement, in a lot of ways, is impotent for now. I see that changing, and they see that changing. But we gotta call it like it is. And we need to change that. In order to change that, we got to recognize that there's a problem before we can solve it. Anyway, a couple other things I want to talk to, and we'll get to some super chats. We are still doing the movie. That's another thing I've been working on these last few weeks. I have heard from a lot of you guys. By the way, thanks to everyone who emailed me about the Amazon and the Kindle stuff. I don't know that I don't know that we're in a position where we can impose any costs on Amazon, but I'm certainly trying. It's just not something that it's apparently their terms and conditions are quite airtight, and other people have challenged them that have more access to lawyers than I do in the past and have failed. But that said, it doesn't matter. My book's back on. It's on Barnes & Noble, and if it gets banned off that, we'll just put it somewhere else. So it's still available. Book 2 is still coming. Again, it's been an avalanche of shit on me lately. The movie, I'll have more on that. That's going to take some. I don't know if you've ever been involved in filmmaking. But it's not going to be as long of a process as a regular film, or even like a lot of these indie films. I've made a few indie films and sent them to festivals, and I remember talking to a lot of these directors, or like after the other movie would show, you'd have like the one-on-one with the audience, where the director's talking about how he made the movie. A lot of these guys are amateurs, right? I mean, including myself at the time. And I was always shocked at like how long some of these awful looking, shit shows took them. Like there was one guy that, I mean, it was like a 15-minute movie. It took him like 2 years, and it was horrible. But that's par for the course. Like if you don't know what you're getting into, there's a lot of things that, especially when you're first going to make a movie, you dream big and you start like you make all these, very ambitious ideas, and then you don't realize it because you've never done it before. Like how ridiculous it was to like try to have a space shuttle, in one of your scenes or something like that. Um, so I already know how to work within our means here, and I already know that we're going to be limited in a lot of areas. And I'm trying to write a script that can handle that can still be good, but work within our means, because that's more important to me than than it's so much more important for a film to be good than for it to have lots of special effects. Like if the acting's shit, it doesn't matter how good the special effects are. The acting's shit. The acting has to. The acting, and I've said this before. Like no one wants to watch porno without the fucking, which is what bad acting is. It's porno without the fucking. No one wants to watch that. And I'm trying real hard to work within our means, including what we're going to have available to us in terms of actors. Is there anything else? Well, let me just go to Super Chats now. And hopefully it hasn't been too bad. I would assume that this has been lagging pretty hard, like in terms of the video, but hopefully my voice keeps coming through. All right. Well, we got Kyle Felipe with $20. Thank you. There's no message. Guitar Man 91588, $5. 3 lies taught in public re-education facilities. Lincoln was a hero. Islam is peaceful. America is a democracy. The first lie is the worst. Yeah, the weird thing, the thing that gets me about the Lincoln thing, I don't know if you've ever been to the Lincoln Memorial, but it not only does it look like a temple, like to a Roman god, it says it's a temple on the wall. It says, in this temple. Or I don't remember the exact phrase, but it uses the word temple. It calls itself a temple. So Lincoln's not just a hero. He's a Roman god. I mean, I don't know how else. I mean, if our civilization is wiped out and people come and find Lincoln's temple, what conclusion would you come to? I mean, that's more than a hero. Mac, $10. Did you see that Connecticut is implementing an anti-right-wing extremist enforcement department, KGB, in the USA? Yeah, I mean, I didn't see that specifically, but another thing in terms of imposing costs that I meant to bring up, but I kind of went a little long. I'm not going to talk about it a bunch right now, but just to mention it, is that and maybe someone sent a super chat about it. We'll see. The 2A thing in Virginia, right? That was an attempt at imposing costs. I don't think that it's going to really be effective. I could be wrong. But that's an attempt by the right wing, or at least the pro-gun people in Virginia, to impose a cost on the local government. I don't know if the cost is going to outweigh the benefits for the people they're trying to impose it on. But that's what that was about. And it'll be interesting to see if that worked. If it did, then maybe that's something we can build on. If it didn't, then we have to think about alternatives. Matt V, $5. Bro, I pray for you often, especially every week at Holy Mass. I hope that you can rediscover his love for you. Check out the Friars No Apologies, number 20. I don't know if that's a YouTube channel. I don't know. I'll Google that. I'll check it out. And look, I don't have I'm not like a monk by any means. I don't have like the strongest faith out of everyone I know. And in fact, I did go through a period where I was pretty sure it was all, just fairy tales. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys, Um, but I never 100% let it go. Like I would still, like everyone, like right when it was like when things were bad, that's when you pray, and it would always be kind of like this in retrospect, kind of blasphemous prayer. Like, look, I don't know if you're out there, but if you are, it's like if I was God and someone's talking to me like that, I'd be like, well, fuck you then. Like, you don't know if I'm even here. And what kind of half-assed? Yeah, I don't do that anymore. But, uh, what are you gonna do? I'm just being honest. And thank you for praying for me. $2. Shop smart, shop smart. I don't know what that means actually. Is that something? Is that a meme? Spice Bear, $10. Don't watch the new episodes of The Simpsons. No one deserves that. I'm waiting. I'll be honest with you. I'm waiting for it to get really bad. I expected it to get bad faster. There's like a few seasons that aren't really that degenerate. I mean, there's like an episode here and there, right? That fully are. And there's like maybe little bits in it where you can tell who's making it. Let's just put it that way. But as a whole, I mean, it's definitely trending in that direction as I progress through the seasons. But there's quite a few episodes that are pretty okay, and I was not expecting that because I hadn't watched Simpsons in a really long time, and the ones that I had seen had been pretty new, and the new ones are pretty bad. So I'm very curious as to see like where it like really takes a turn. So I kind of have to watch even the new ones, which I'm not looking forward to. Miles Dios, $2. If you burn my flag, you get a free ass whooping. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to condone violence, but just philosophically speaking, that is imposing a cost on a form of speech. And and like I said with the shirt example, like if that guy were to walk down the street with a shirt that said fuck off in downtown Salt Lake City in 1955, he might be buried in a shallow grave outside of town. I don't know. Something would have happened to him. He wouldn't just be walking down the street. And that would be imposing a cost. Again, not condoning violence. I'm just being descriptive and philosophically speaking. That's a form of imposing a cost on speech. When am I joining Telegram from Giggles? I did join Telegram. It's BlackPilled on Telegram. I don't use it much because I don't like the interface. I don't like how there's not I hate to admit it, but I do kind of like the way Twitter is structured. Like I think which is funny because I hated it when I first started using it. But now I do like the feed, I don't like how you have to go through and select different feeds on Telegram. And you also don't get like a lot of interaction, right? So you don't get comments. It just, it's not as it just feels like, it kind of feels like almost like a Dropbox folder where I'm just like plopping stuff into a folder and you can get it if you want it. And maybe I'll be forced into using it, but Telegram's not exactly 100% free speech either. They took down a few channels recently. I don't remember the specifics of that, but you can Google that. I know that happened. They, at the request of, I don't know, someone, some government or like ADL or someone like that, they did shut down some channels. Reject modernity. Gave me 2 leaf bucks. Did you see the Netflix Messiah show? No. I mean, I'm already pretty black-pilled as it is. I mean, it's kind of funny. Like a lot of people think, like on my Instagram, my Twitter, like that people are just sending me this stuff, and they might. I don't, especially on Instagram. I don't really check my DMs or anything like that. And I do get that's why I don't check them. I get so many and a lot of them are not nice. But I'm finding a lot of this stuff on my own, and it takes a lot of time, and it does kind of wear on your soul a little bit. And I don't know if I'm ready to watch that yet. Uh, and obviously, I don't have Netflix, so I'd have to find a way of getting it. Although I heard that a cost was imposed on the director. That's all I'm going to say about that. You can look into that further if you want to use Google or your favorite search engine. And then E. Michael Jones and You Should Talk. I've talked to him before, briefly. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I just don't like these streams are pretty irregular. The biggest thing is with doing interviews right now for me is my bandwidth. Like you've seen, like it's probably been choppy as hell like this whole time. I'm just assuming it's been terrible because the last time it was something happened. I'm going off my phone right now. I'm actually directly using my phone for internet, but I actually have two other wireless because it's so unreliable. Like when one's broken, the other one will work. And so I'll ping pong between them. And just this month, they've both been shit, and including my phone, obviously. So I don't know if I'm pretty sure they're going through different providers, but I think it's going to the same tower. And part of it is the area that I'm in is very sparsely populated, but not this time of year. I don't want to say there's like a season, like a tourist season, because it's not. But like, yeah, I mean, it's not a big secret. I live in the Southwest. I live in a desert area, so there's, like our winters are very tame. You know what I mean? Like it was like 70 degrees today, or not today. There was actually kind of a storm today, but yesterday it was like 70 degrees, and so it's real nice. And then like at night it doesn't drop down that low. So we have an influx of boomers that come in to the area and live in their winter homes. You can just tell because in the summer it's like a ghost town like out here, and there's like boomers hauling like ATVs with their giant trucks and like their huge RVs, like all that kind of nonsense just out of the woodwork. And I think they might be overloading the tower, and so maybe when they leave, it'll start working again. So we'll see. But in the meantime, it's real hard for me to even stream. Like I just have to pretty much assume my video is going to suck, which is why I just put a picture up this time. I actually shot a lot of fancy video that I wanted to stream with my stream. And last time I streamed, it was so choppy that I didn't want to waste that video on something that wasn't going to be able to transmit it. So there's really not much I can do about it. I mean, I don't even have, I don't have really, the only utility that even comes out here is electricity. So let's see here. Red Raven, thank you for your rage against the machine. Yeah, and even though that band is like a bunch of crazy leftists, I really liked that music when I was younger, and I wish it was. See, that's the thing. That's what we need. We need like a right-wing rage against the machine. We need a lot of. We don't have the same resources, but I'm telling you, if we had people, because those guys are talented. Let's just face it. It's good music. Whether it's subversive as fuck, sure, and it's definitely commie shit, but they're talented. It's not. They weren't just propped up by the record industry. I mean, they were, but that's not. You can't just chalk it all up to that. So what we need people on the right wing that have talent, that are willing to just not, that are willing to sacrifice some money, because that's the price you pay. Because if you're as good as like a Rage Against the Machine, let's say for example, and you're right wing, you're not going to get signed by a major record label. In fact, you might even get a major record label telling you like, look, cut all this right-wing shit out, and we'll get you a deal, and people probably take that deal. But we need people that are willing to not take that deal, and that still have the talent. And I'd promote if there's music or anything like that was good like that, I would promote it. But also thank you. I know it's not what we were talking about, but anyway. No step on Sneck, $5. I'm Catholic. Fuck the Pope. Anyway, in my experience, the boomer clergy is pretty converged, but the young clergy gets it and wants to bring back the old ways. Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm not Catholic, so I don't understand that dynamic because I came from. I don't think this is a secret. My parents are Mormon, and in the Mormon religion, they have what's like a pope. It's the president of the church, and it's not like Catholics where there's different kinds of Catholics, and this priest says something different than this priest. It's not like that. It's like in Mormonism, it's like the guy at the top is like a literal prophet, like a guy who talks to God. So if he says this is what we're doing, that's what everyone's doing. Like everyone falls in line. Like that's what it is. And so I kind of thought that's how Catholics were when I was younger, and it's not. Like it just seems like I don't get it. Like I don't get it because what's the point of the Pope if no one like everyone thinks he's like a sodomite? You know what I mean? And like why aren't you overthrowing him? You know, like I don't get it. Like I guess I'd have to be Catholic to understand that. But that's I think most people who aren't Catholic don't get that because I know a lot of really fucking base Catholics, and they all kind of say the same thing that you just said. You know, they're all just like, yeah, the Pope sucks, and like most of these guys. It's like, then why are you Catholic? Like, what's the? I don't get it. I just don't get it. And maybe someone will explain it to me someday. I would love I would like an explanation that made sense too, not like a theological explanation. Like an explanation, I'd love a pragmatic, like an explanation that would make sense to an atheist, or make sense to anyone. You know, like it doesn't like I don't want to have to I don't want the argument to be based on something that you have to be kind of a Catholic to for it to make sense. But anyway, maybe you can explain it to me. Maybe someone, I don't care. Someone I would love to hear. Maybe I'll talk to Vince. I talk to Vince sometimes, and he's Catholic, and I think we've touched on it a couple times, but I've never really harassed him about it. All right, giggles. Leaderless resistance because leaders get redacted. Yeah, I mean, look. There's a lot of advantages to not having leaders, right? But there's a lot of disadvantages. You know, the MAGA movement, for example. Their leader is Trump. Trump can fire missiles at someone if he wants. If you don't have a leader, you can't fire missiles at anybody. And we need to start thinking in terms of power. And in order to have power, there's no such thing as a decentralized, powerful movement. It just doesn't happen. You need to have some centralization. You need to have some leadership. And because you got to remember, too, not everyone is going to really... Like, a lot of people listening and a lot of people that are involved now are like the smarter, the higher IQ people that understand the ideology and are in it because they understand what's going on. That's not the case for most people. Most people are just never going to get it. I mean, think about Trump supporters. You know, there were people, including myself, that rationalized a reasoning for supporting Trump. And I knew it was a gamble, right? I think when I supported him, I promoted him. I did a lot to get him elected, honestly. But even then, I knew it was kind of like what Michael Moore said, that people just want to throw a hand grenade into D.C. and kind of see what happens, just blow the whole thing up. And I thought that's what we were doing with Trump. Turns out it wasn't. But, and now, I kind of just think he's really not any different than anyone else we would have got, except for there. I mean, he has definitely, ultimately, he was the best one. I think, in my more black-pilled moments, I won't agree with myself here, but ultimately he was the best guy that could have been elected, he got elected. Obviously, he has not lived up to our expectations, and to such an extent that he might not. I think he will, but it's not 100% that he'll get elected again. But yeah, the fact that, but look at how the MAGA people look at Trump. If you've ever argued with them on Twitter, you can tell they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They just love Trump. Like, doesn't matter what you say, they just love Trump. Like the Q people. I mean, they just love. They're so irrational. They just irrationally love Trump. And if you want power, you need to have the irrational people as well as the rational people. I mean, you do. And that's just, and a lot of humans aren't very rational. So right now we have the rational people, and that's a shrinking percentage of the population. And if you want to have power, you can't just focus all your efforts on influencing rational people. Because, you know, and you're going to hit a ceiling. And I think we're pretty close to that, honestly. I mean, I think you always have to keep going. I'm not saying like, all right, we got enough people that are rational and smart, so let's just stop that and start doing this other strategy. No, you always have to keep it, because there's always new people, you know, being born and getting to the age where they pay attention to politics. So you have to like constantly maintain the newly planted seeds, right? You have to keep tending to the garden, right? And you have to keep weeding out the weed. In fact, I was weeding my hugelkultur bed the other day, and I was like, this would be a great metaphor, and maybe I'll do that, because weeding, by the way, is my least favorite thing to do in the world. But yeah, you need a leader. Long answer to that question, but you definitely need a leader. Daedalus. Yeah, there was like I don't think I said that right. There was a Sega Saturn game that had that name, if I remember correctly. Or wait, am I thinking, is it Sega Saturn, or was it like a arcade game that I used to play that had that name? Anyway, it was a long time ago, like in the 90s or something. The absolute ruler may be a Nero, but he is sometimes a Titus, Marcus Aurelius. The people is often Nero, but never Mark Aurelius. Antoine Rivarol. I'm sure that's more profound than I'm understanding. The absolute ruler may be a Nero, but he is sometimes a Titus or a Mark Aurelius. The people is often Nero, but never Mark Aurelius. Yeah, okay. I think you're kind of saying what I was just saying. You have a lot of irrational people. Matt V. The Catholic Church was infiltrated. Gay men who were recruited by Commie Belatod under orders from Stalin. Search churchmilitant.com for info. Yeah, I've heard people say stuff like that, but that's my point. Like, so why still? I mean, if you're trying, it's like how I feel about the Republican Party, right? Like, if you have the ability to seize control of the Catholic Church and wrestle it away from these people who have infiltrated it, then yeah, stay in and do that, but do that. Otherwise, why don't you just make something else? Or maybe not even, you know, because I know that's a big thing with Catholics, right? They're like, oh, well, then we'd be the Protestants, right? Like I feel like that's like an emotional response that Catholics would have to that idea. So why even look at it like that? Why not say, no, you're not the Protestants for carrying out what was traditionally always done in the Catholic Church. You're still the Catholics. The Pope is now a Protestant. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? I don't know. Like, again, I'm not Catholic. You guys got to work it out on your own. But I'm just, as an outsider, I'm just giving you ideas. Barry Ross, 2 leaf bucks, appreciate it. Jason Ray, $5. If Trump can't help, we were screwed anyway, so back him until further notice. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, he was the best guy at the time. He's done a lot of good. That I don't focus on as much I did. I feel like I did already. When people think I shit on Trump too much, it's because they probably just didn't know who I. They didn't follow me a couple years ago. They didn't follow me in 2015. They didn't see when I was working for like the MAGA kids, like pumping out content for some of the biggest MAGA kids, and really trying to get Trump elected. They don't know. They don't know that about me. They think I'm just like some pissed off guy that hates Trump or something. It's like, no, I'm just really disappointed. you know. But no, you don't back him until further notice, because that's the thing. That's the same thing. If you do that, then you're not imposing costs on Trump. The reason there's no wall right now is no one has imposed any costs on Trump for not building the wall. He could do the fucking wall. He could do it. But the costs of doing it are higher than the costs of not doing it. So if you say support Trump either way, you're basically saying that, if Trump doesn't build the wall, so what? We're not going to pressure him. And that's the wrong way to get. That's not how power works. And then we got a pee poo poo from NW. Thank you. Machiavelli sucks, I think. 199. Lincoln's greenbacks were good. I don't know enough about that, to be honest. Are you talking about the? I'd have to research the monetary system at that time. I don't really know what the situation was at that point. Frantic Missy 999. Love your work, sir. Thanks for being brave enough to be you publicly. You are important. Please look into the Empire Strikes Back. No, I'm just kidding. The Empire of Tartaria when you get some time. Truth will set you free, and it costs nothing. Nah, appreciate it. I think, is that the thing? Is that the thing where people think that there was like a super advanced civilization a long time ago, and that predates like a lot of these old, like, I don't know if it involves the pyramids too, but like you see like these fantastic buildings that it's like some futuristic, almost like a lost city of Atlantis kind of a thing, only it's like the whole world in a way. I mean, I think that stuff's possible. I don't know how it really matters a whole lot though. Like, at least not currently. It's kind of like when people get into like flat Earth versus round Earth stuff. It's like, I mean, I think the Earth is round because, I use ham radio, and there's a lot of things that wouldn't work if it was flat. But other than that, it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't see how it would change anything, like, so while I think it's 100% possible for there to be these big conspiracies, in fact, I could just misunderstand the science. I don't think that's the case, but I'm not so full of myself to think that, I mean, I'm 99% sure I understand the science behind what I'm talking about on the round stuff. Even if it was flat, I don't see how that really changes anything, So I just don't focus on that stuff because I feel like we have more pressing matters, and it doesn't move the football, so to speak, for me. But I mean, I think that stuff's interesting. I haven't really looked into it. I'm only guessing that's even what it means. So I'll Google it after the stream. Because as you say, it does cost me nothing. Rebellion 15, $4.99. If you want something to bring back your faith, read Martin Luther's The Jays. I think I have that book. I have I've got the Henry Ford one. Or actually, I've got all the volumes of it. Someone gave me like every volume of that, and I have flipped through that one, but I haven't read Martin Luther's. I think I might have it though. I'll check on my bookshelf because I don't think it's very long, if I remember correctly. Forrest Grump, $20. Appreciate it. Keep up the good work, Devin. I appreciate it. Brandon Allen, $5. Enjoy your work, thanks. Thank you, Brandon. NTS Bear, $9.99. No comment. Okay. Well, thank you for the support. I hate how this just scrolled past everybody. Giggles, $2. Telegram doesn't censor, but iPhones censor some. So is that what it was? Where Apple said their app for iPhone had to? That's just as fucked up. I wonder if Gab could have used that strategy though, because I think honestly, there's a lot of things that hold Gab back, but I think the biggest one, honestly, excuse me, is that there's no app. And with Twitter, I don't know if you hear the cat again. That's right, buddy. Settle down. But yeah, I think the lack of an app really sets Gab back. Let's see here. Frantic Missy, $1.99. I'll share my Netflix login. All right, well, I'll think about it. No Step on Snake, $5. Get out of debt. Look at South Africa. There's still whites working 9 to 5 with writing on the wall. Yeah, I've never been to South Africa, but I've talked to people from South Africa, and it sounds like I would not want to live there anymore. But at the same time, to be honest, there's a lot of reasons to not want to live in America anymore. Like a lot of reasons. And I find it, and I've had opportunities to not live in America. A few. And not just like whimsical, no, like I've had opportunities to just, all I had to do was just do it, right? And, there's just something about, especially if you're a South African, or in my case, an American, where your ancestors kind of tamed the wilderness and built it out of the ground. I can't really explain it, I guess. Hopefully at least a lot of you guys understand that are listening, because you feel the same way. It's just hard to just, even if it's a rational thing to do, the rational thing is to just say, fuck it, it's over, and go to like Eastern Europe or wherever, right? It's just real hard to think of doing that. Like, it just feels like a betrayal, of your ancestors. I don't know how. I know it's not a rational thing, but I sympathize with the people in South Africa, because I kind of have the same thoughts, or the same. Obviously not to the same degree, in terms of the violence. Well, I don't know. You look at Chicago, right? But I do kind of feel like there's a connection to the earth, the soil, if you will. It's hard to break that connection. But if you keep going back far enough with my ancestors, they did it, right? To come here in the first place. And I've thought about that too as a rationale, right? Like, well, I'm not really abandoning my fatherland, because but yeah, I am. It's. You could rationalize anything, I guess. And you could rationalize moving to China. They're going to be the next big thing, and which is what my ancestors might have been thinking when they came to America in the first place. I don't think that's what they were thinking, but I have never talked to them, so who knows, right? But yes, get out of debt, certainly. That was a very important thing to do. It made getting my book banned, which was a significant hit to me, easier to do. They're trying to hurt me financially, and they're successfully doing it. But if I had a mortgage or something like that, I'd be a little nervous right now. So it's important to get out of that debt if you can. Coy Ladante, what are your thoughts on the Gnostic sects like Cathars and Bogmilis and their influence over modern doctrine. Not super important. I'm mostly just asking if you have something asking to have something to ask. I actually don't know a lot about this. Is what I'm talking about. I know there's like a lot of different Catholic sects and like a lot of different groups within that fall underneath the umbrella. And I know there's like the Orthodox is like their own thing, but also kind of not their own thing. It's kind of confusing to me. I don't know enough about it because that's not how. I mean, a lot of my friends are Catholic, but we don't really talk about that much. And I didn't go to Catholic school or anything like that. David Morris, £2. White wedding dead in the UK over 20 years ago. White wedding. Are you talking about the song? It's a nice day for a white wedding. Or are you talking about, if you're not talking about Billy Idol, are you talking about a white, like literally the idea of having a virgin bride being dead 20? Yeah, I mean, maybe even longer than that. Because I was trying to find degenerate films. It's a lot longer than 20 years ago in the UK. Because when I was doing, I think I talk about it I did a video on divorce films where I talk about the different divorce movies that all came out at the same time. And there was one that came out in the UK, and I forget the name. It's in that video though, if you find that. And it was the worst out of all of them. Like, and it was from the 60s. It was from like 65, I want to say. And it was nominated for an Oscar, and even though it was a foreign film, and it was a big hit in the UK, and it was just pure degeneracy. I mean, it's about this harlot basically that just goes around fucking all these guys and getting divorced and remarried and divorced and just this horrible person. And she goes to like these fancy parties, and like one of the parties she goes to, they have like low-level royals there. Or whatever you guys call them, like dukes or I don't know, and they have like African underage like sex boys at the party. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, that's in the movie from 1965. So I think it was a lot longer than 20 years ago. I'm sure there were more conservative parts in the UK. UK is not just London, thank God. but you know what I mean? Like, in terms of, I mean, there was a lot of degeneracy going on in the UK. I would even say, I think they're ahead of the curve from America in a lot of ways when it comes to degeneracy. I remember thinking when I was a kid, like, oh, in Europe they could have boobs on TV. We couldn't do that. All right, let's see here. Clark Smith, $20. Hi, Devin. Thanks for all you do. Is this normal? Is this normal time for live shows? I was lucky to catch you tonight. Love all your videos. No, I was going to do this stream actually last night, and I just got wrapped up doing other stuff, and by the time I was going to do it, I was just so tired I just couldn't do it. And I figured no one would be up because it was like midnight. And I was like, I could do a midnight stream. I'm sure some people would be watching, right? But yeah, I have to get in the habit of doing something a little more regular. It's just been really tough. If you understood the amount of things I have to do. And I'll just be honest, like, when you're out here, I'm pretty isolated. It's not like I've worked from home for like several years. So that's not like a new thing. I'm a self-motivated, self-starting kind of person. But when it's not something like, just when it gets a little overwhelming at times, and you kind of get behind, and just it gets tough sometimes, and so I think routine would help probably. But this is also supposedly this is like the roughest time of the year for people right now. This is like the Christmas New Year's hangover period. Like the afterglow of the holidays is gone, but the weather hasn't changed, and it kind of just feels like winter's just keeps going, but there's nothing good about it because there's no like Christmas or New Year's coming up. And, and for single people, and not even just single people, for some couples, you got Valentine's Day coming up. Like, I think, like, this is like according to research, according to experts in lab coats, this is like the roughest time for people right now. So, yeah, maybe I need to get in a routine. That would help. Robert Sturkesson. Are you Swedish or something? I think that's like a Swedish name. Vote for, well, I can't 100% say that because I don't know what it's referring to. And it has a word that is like a no-no word. So I won't read that. And I don't know what you're referring to at all. So a bald guy creation, $5. I just bought the PB version on BNN. Have the Kindle version since you released it and don't want to lose it. Here's a cup of love on top of that. Patreon. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Yeah, all the support you guys give me really helps. And like I said, I know I've been kind of a little behind on the content. It just, losing the book was kind of a blow, and like having to deal with some of the stuff tied to that, and then getting the idea of the movie and wanting to do it. I'm not going to just be like, I'm going to make a movie, and then you never hear about it again. Like it's going to get done. I can't promise it'll get done super, super fast, but it's also not going to be like, this time next year where I'm still like, oh, we're going to get that movie done. It'll get done. Frantic Missy, 199. Look up maps, please, sir. They are real. Maps? I don't know what you mean by maps. Do you mean like Pizzagate maps? Because, yes, those are real. Pizza-related maps, I mean. Okay. Jason Ray, $2. We rebel if Trump doesn't solve this. He knows it. Nah. You might, but I don't know if you've talked to his... I don't know if you've seen his rallies lately. No one seems to be rebelling. There's a lot of people that... There's people that'll rebel if Trump got removed from office. You know what I mean? There would be a rebellion. But if Trump just doesn't build the wall, I don't think anything's going to happen, really. Nothing's happening now. In fact, there's people that are in such denial. I think last time I checked, which was like a week ago, there was 2 miles of wall, maybe 4, of new wall. Like, people always, oh, no, there's like all this wall. No, that was replacement of existing wall with not really a wall. You know what I mean? Like, it's not what I had in mind when he was saying big, beautiful wall. But yeah, nothing's going to happen to him, I don't think. I mean, it's not, in terms of the election, how many people are going to not vote for him because he didn't build the wall yet? There'll be a few, but not a lot. Zed does 5 leaf bucks. Have you noted that you bring together all the factions of our movement? Great job. All the best to you, your loved ones, and shared future. Yeah, I was kind of, it's kind of funny. I've had people tell me that before. And that's kind of how I was in high school. Like, I was friends with like all the different groups. Like, I wasn't like a jock or a skater or a punk kid or, goth or anything. But like, I went to like all their parties and knew most of them. So I'm cool. I'm just cool with a lot of people because I like people. Well, I don't like everybody. I like people, but I paradoxically also hate people. So, yeah, I get along with most people, and I don't like to attack people that I feel like are ultimately doing good. Because it just seems there's a lot of that goes on the right, and it just seems self-defeating unless there's someone that's like really dangerous. And again, it's good to punch up too. So like when the Groypers, for example, were going after Charlie Kirk, yeah, you should do that because Charlie Kirk is dangerous, and I mean that like in the fullest sense, fullest meaning of that word. He's dangerous to the country, and that kind of thinking is dangerous, and it needs to be called out. And you're not punching down; you're punching up. Motherfucker hung out with Trump on New Year's, okay, which a lot of people don't know, and a lot of people need to know. So know that when you attack Charlie Kirk, you're kind of indirectly and directly attacking Trump. But those are the kind of people you need to go after. In like the Dennis Prager's of the world. And I used to really like Dennis Prager. And I think on a personal level, I'd probably like him, you know? It's just that I know he's not America first. I know he's not. I know he's Israel first. And I know this confidently because I listened to his radio show for years. And I just didn't really, you know, like most Republicans, like most boomer Republicans still, uh, I thought Israel was like a good ally to have, you know? Like I think Jon Stewart from The Daily Show, who I hate and I've always hated, but he made a good point once, or like I thought was a good point, rather. Uh, he he made a persuasive point. Let me put it that way. That the reason why so many Americans like Israel is they look at the Middle East and they see all these Muslims and they're blowing each other up and doing all this stuff, and then they see Israel and they're like, well, they look kind of like us and they're not blowing us up. We're going to pick these guys. Now, obviously, if you know the real story behind several world events, that's not true. But at the time, when I was listening to Prager and stuff through my blue-pilled glasses, yeah, that's how I viewed it. I thought it was a persuasive point. They're like, yeah, I guess it makes sense that we're friends with Israel because, or at least they're not blowing us up. Silverstein. But anyway, let's see here. Brandon Allen, would you consider doing weekly live streams? Enjoyed it. Thanks. Yeah, I honestly, I should do something like that, if not even more often. Especially because it takes so long to make my videos. That with everything I got going on, especially as I'm doing the movie, it might be easier to just maybe do even more than once a week on the streams, and then just not, and maybe still do like a movie one every once in a while or something like that, or a recorded scripted one every once in a while. But ultimately, I don't have the time. Like, it takes a long time to make those videos, so maybe this is a better alternative. Even though, like, I'm not, this doesn't come natural to me, believe it or not. This is not, I think there's a lot of people that, like, really eat this up, that really like broadcasting, or I don't know how you would, I don't know the word that I'm trying to think of, but which is precisely why it doesn't come natural to me. I like to be able to script things and have all my facts straight, and because there's a lot of times like I'll want to reference like a study or a person, and I just I've got like the quantum leap guy's memory sometimes. I got the Swiss cheese memory where like I remember like the result of the study, but I don't remember like who conducted it or where it was published, and that's the kind of shit that I like to have if I'm going to talk about something, and when I'm live. It just, and I got a tablet right here, and maybe I should be looking it up and just get good at that. Maybe that's just what I need to do is get better at it. Philip D. Jones Jr. Flat Earth brought me back to God. Well, all right. I look. I don't think it makes a difference. But to some people, it seems to be something like important. So good, I guess. I mean, if that's what did it for you, Shortwave Kitty, $2. Gab does have an app, but not like in the App Store, or at least not in the Apple App Store. Like they've got, it's not technically an app. Like I think you can put like an icon, and it loads like a web app, but it's not like an app. It's not like an iOS app. You know what I mean? Maybe they do for Android. I don't know. I use, to my shame, I use Apple products. And sorry guys, they're both converged heavily, and they're both spied on. It's at this point, and I've just always had iPhones, but yeah, I don't. They don't have an app in the App Store. Rising Jake, $10. Can you expound on your thoughts on the international click? There was a certain German dude with a mustache who didn't particularly like it. Lampshades and soaps were never made, by the way. Um, my thoughts. Well, I mean, I think I've been pretty explicit in a lot of videos I've made. My thoughts haven't changed from anything I've said in the past. I would just say it's not limited to the group you're talking about, but they are certainly major players, if not the major players. And I think in the West, really, for the last century, it'd be pretty safe to say they have been the major players, with maybe a couple blips here and there. Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't know how people could deny it. It's pretty easy to see, and that's the thing is everyone else sees it. Everywhere where there's not a taboo about talking about this group, they talk about it openly. The Chinese, again, on my Instagram, and I don't want to like keep talking about my Instagram, but that's where the video is. I posted a video, and by the way, the Instagram is black_pilled, and you can't. It's shadow banned, so you have to like search for it letter for letter and spell it completely out, or it won't come out. And there's some other ones with similar names, so that's the only reason why I'm telling you this, because you can literally type it all the way to like only the last letters missing, and it still won't pop up. And it's a pretty big account. In fact, Samuel L. Jackson follows me on Instagram. I'm not shitting you. I'm not shitting you at all. I don't know why, but he does. Or at least he did. Maybe he's unfollowed me because of some of my recent stuff. But he did, or he has for a while. So it's black_pilled. But anyway, on that page, I've got a video, and I'm not familiar with these creators. People were commenting that these are YouTubers, so there's probably like it's just a clip from a longer video. But it's a couple where it's Chinese wife, white husband, and Chinese as in she's like from China, Chinese. And for some reason they're talking about Jews, and he says something like, well, when the Chinese think about Jews, do they think about like the Hasidic Jews that you might see like in Manhattan, with the curly sideburns and stuff? And she says, no, we just think about rich people that control everything. And he looks super embarrassed, and tries to like get her to walk it back, and he's like, well, I mean that's not like your thoughts. That's just, and she's like, no, everyone, think about it. Every time we see rich people and powerful people on TV, they're always Jewish. I mean, the Chinese get it. The Chinese get it. In fact, there's even a professor that was teaching at one of the universities a class about, and you can search for this on the internet. I don't remember all this. Again, see, this is why I don't like not being scripted, because I would love to have this information. But he taught a class on basically in a way, I guess you could call it like a culture of critique class, where he just talked about the strategies they've used to control the West. So, anyway, I hope that helps. Kyle Napoleon, 2 Canadian bucks. Your black pills are white to me. Be well. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, look, I think we have the potential. I mean, anyone who thinks that we're worth saving and we're worth preserving as a people and a culture and a society thinks that we're capable of winning. I mean, so when people like, I wish this hadn't happened to the term, but it seems like a lot of people are using the term black pill to mean that like hopeless. And it's not hopeless as in we're all just going to die. Why even get up in the morning? I mean, at the same time, it's not like all sunshine and rainbows. But that's the point. You're not going to get out of your seat unless it's painful to sit. And so some of what I'm trying to do here is to get people to see how shitty it is, because not everyone gets it. Not everyone gets it, especially like if you live. A lot of people are like this. A lot of people live very insulated lives, and it's not just weirdos. It's like a lot of people. This is just your life, like your circle of friends. I mean, you might have your Facebook friends that you interact with, and maybe it's still people that you knew from high school and college and whatever, right? But largely, it's just I haven't used Facebook in a really long time, so I don't know if it's still like this. But it's like pictures of kids and crap like that, right? But in terms of people that you actually interact with, it's pretty small, right? It's a pretty small pool of people, and it's like your coworkers, and you might not even get that political. And and hopefully you're working somewhere where they're not like trying to bring drag queens in and stuff like that. And even if there are a lot of lefties that will support the drag queen story hour, they're only supporting it because it's not happening to their kids, right? So they support it in principle, or like these libertarians where it's the same thing, where they're free speech absolutists, where they're like, well, it's just a shirt, bro, that kind of people. So like when you interact with these people, you don't see the decay. And so my job, I think, in some ways, is to put it in front of you and force you to look at it, so that you really understand how bad it is. Because everyone's going to be okay with the status quo if they don't understand. Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? That's a famous saying. And that's how a lot of people feel. Well, it's not that bad. And it's because they never stick their head outside of their bubble. So what I try to do is inject it into their bubble and force them to look at it. And it's not to get them to be hopeless. It's to get them to understand, like, look, things are bad and they're going to get worse. That's ultimately what I want people to see, is the trend. Okay? Understand the trend. Because if you see the trend, you can avoid where you're headed. But if you don't even know where you're going, like a lot of people, I mean, think of how many people think that because Trump is in the White House, everything's good. I mean, that's a lot of people. People that would be helpful to us, people that would agree with us if they understood what was really going on. So I'm just trying to blackpill them on solutions that used to work that are no longer relevant. Eric Blair's $2. Sisu, I don't know what that means, but thanks for the super chat. Matthew Weber, $10. Hey Devin, big fan of yours. Do you have any suggestions for how to red pill American boomers, specifically Christian boomers, to the dangers of demographic replacement? I dealt with this with my family, my mom specifically. My dad's not very political, believe it or not. My mom's, she was actually weirdly like hip to the corruption, even like in the VHS days. Like she had a VHS tape on the Clinton murders when I was a kid. I'm not kidding. And so I was like, what? Like, so I got blackpilled pretty quick, where I was just like, what? They're murderers? Like when I was a kid. And so my mom got it like, a long time ago, but she's still, she's still part of that generation where, she wants to have the based black friend and that sort of thing, right? And well, I hate, I get the 13 does 50 thing, but I hate shitting on just blacks as a group, because there's an argument to be made. I mean, that they've been here a really long time. I'm not saying that without its consequences, but I mean, think about it. Like, if you're an African American whose family's been here 400 years, and it wasn't like you decided. It's not like you chose to. 400 years ago, your family even chose to come here. That's something you got to at least think about. Um, it's not as well, not to be a cliche. It's not as black and white as you might want it to be, but all the same, it is black and white with a lot of these other groups. And I would say for the boomers, one way to get around. Well, I mean, it depends on how right wing they are. Uh, one good way to do it, or at least I guess to start the conversation, I guess, would just be because if they're boomers that pay attention, like even if they watch Fox News or something like that, right? If they're at all paying attention at all, and at least kind of have, and they keep up with stuff, just tell them next time there's someone horrific in the news, like Weinstein, Epstein, Adam Schiff, um, what's his nuts, Schumer, uh, any of these people that boomers hate. Ask them what do all these people have in common, and what percentage does that group make? What percentage of the population is that group in America, and what's the probability of that? And just leave it at that, and just be like, and then and just tell them, hey, look, just start paying attention. Next time there's another bad guy, for lack of a better term, in the news, just look at early life on Wikipedia, or their last name, and just start looking for patterns. And just because and you're not going to be successful with a lot of them. You got to remember they lived through the peak of effective propaganda that there was really no way of getting around. Like you can't really. There was no internet. There's no way to verify if the guy on the news says something. You believe it. Your parents believe it. Like no one's really questioning it. If you do, you're kind of a crackpot. I mean, and they're in their 70s now, right? So 70 years of that. I mean, that's kind of you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So you kind of, just you're not going to win with a lot of these guys. And a lot of them are really emotionally attached to like the civil rights movement because they see. I mean, again, going back to The Simpsons, because The Simpsons brings up the '60s. I don't know if you've heard people talk. Like a lot of millennials will tell you that, and Gen Xers will tell you that, you know, been listening to boomers have been talking about the '60s since the '60s. Like they haven't shut up about it. Like they're still talking about the '60s, and in every medium too. Like it's not just the boomers, it's like all the movies and TV shows and music that boomers make. It's just like it's always about the civil rights movement. It's always about the '60s, and so it's kind of like tied to their identity. It's almost impossible to, like why do you think so many boomers like to talk about MLK? When he's objectively a terrible person, and it's provable. And I think even the boomers kind of know it. They just don't want to talk about it because it's just like cognitive dissonance. They can't do it, Anyway, where was I? European homelands $5 for $100. Would you do an interview on my channel? I don't know. Like I wouldn't do it for any money, but I'll have to check. I've never heard of your channel. Maybe I should have. Not trying to insult you. I just haven't. I'll check out your channel, and you don't have to pay if it looks okay to me. I'll go on there. But yeah, I don't like. I'm not like Lauren Southern, where if you pay me $100, we can Skype chat. I might wear a low-cut shirt. All right, EMH, $10. I believe we're in the last stages of our civilization, and there is nothing we can do about it. I have no idea how long it will last. Nothing can save it. So why not organize self-sufficient communities? Yeah, that's one strategy, and it's kind of what I'm trying to do, at least for my family. And I'd like to get maybe some of my extended family involved. They're just, I have a lot of normies in my extended family, and so it's hard to find people that, there's a lot of people that like the idea of that, but they're not willing to put in the work. But yeah, if you can find close friends that you can trust, or family members preferably, that you can get together and get some land, and make sure you don't want to be hermits. You still need to have access to stuff. Like, you can generate your own electricity, you can dig a well and get your own water, but you want internet, right? I mean, you just practically. You need to have internet these days. And so that puts kind of you can get satellite. I mean, if you're not a content creator, it's a different ball game, right? Like if you're just, if you're not uploading, if you're just downloading, you can do satellite from anywhere, and it's a little expensive and kind of shitty, but it's not much shittier than what I've got now. Just what I have uploads faster. Like, I don't think you could even, like, I know it's choking. I don't even think you could stream with satellite, how I'm doing this. I could be wrong. Maybe that's different. But last time I checked into it, satellite was like a nightmare for upload. But yeah, I'm all about that. That's what I'm doing now. Animatronic, $2. What do you do to recharge and escape negativity? I'm not the best one to ask for that. I haven't done the best job of recharging from negativity this month. It's been a negative month, man. Like, it's like, I think that, having good friends that you talk to and disconnect. I mean, for me, it's different, right? This is part of my job, where I have to stay connected, and I'm used to it. I've been at least involved in some way in politics or news for a really long time. It's not just like a new thing. And this is a little more intense than either of those professions when I was involved were to me. But I've also just been really intensely interested in what's going on. I've always been checking obsessively, like checking news. Since, I was, like a kid. And so it's, I don't know, like, you just got to be able to unplug every once in a while. And another thing is, you got to set goals that are unrelated. Like, so for example, like I'm going to get into beekeeping, right? Which is going to be a little difficult because there's a lot of killer bees here, like a lot, they've killed people here. And if you get European bees and set them up in a hive, Africanized bees will come and take them over, and it's like it's just really annoying to be a beekeeper here. But I still want to do it because it'll be something completely unrelated. And it'll be something that'll keep my mind off it, and it'll give me honey, which is a lot of calories in a survival situation. And it's just an interesting thing. Like, I like learning about bees. Ever since I started learning about bees when I had to get rid of that beehive in my ceiling of killer bees, they've just been fascinating animals to me. Organisms, I guess I would say. It's really kind of a fascinating, and I love honey. so it's a win-win. So yeah, I would do that, and obviously, I think a lot of people too, especially some people make the mistake. It's good to find a good balance. Like if you have a girlfriend or a wife that's also like really into this shit, it almost makes it harder to stay happy than if you don't want her to just be clueless and not know what the hell is going on. But if she's as into it as you are, I feel like it becomes like this infinite feedback loop. It's like you just feed off each other. Whereas if she's aware, like if she's red pilled and like it's okay for you to be black pilled, but it's better if your woman is red pilled. Like you don't want her to be black pilled too, because it just becomes like this negativity feedback loop, and it's harder for her to be part of your escape if she's just as concerned about everything that you are. So I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful or not. I hope that makes sense. And hopefully that makes sense to the women listening. If you've got a guy that is getting kind of tightly wound about this stuff, help him out. And vice versa. If you got a woman that's maybe more black-pilled than you are, take her to dinner. Do something fun. Wed Photog 1 $4.99. Please keep regular with the live streams. I understand it's difficult with your other responsibilities. Hype for book 2. Yeah, no, I do need to do more of these. And they're not. It's one of those things where like I stress out about it, but then once I'm doing it, it's not so bad. It's never as bad as I think it's going to be. Frantic Missy 199. Maps of the Empire of Tartaria. All right, I will check that out. Maps of the Empire of Tartaria. I just scrolled too much. I can't tell if it's doing this because my internet sucks or if YouTube sucks. Elfin 499 Stack. Here's a little bit for the Tradwife Savings Fund. Tavistock is based in the UK, so they try the programming on the Limeys first and then on USA Goys. Yeah, there could be some truth to that because I remember a lot of I got a friend that works for I'll just say a financial institution, and they test market a lot of their stuff in Australia because they see it as like a very similar market to America, like kind of like how politically they look at Iowa, like however Iowa votes, you can like gauge how a candidate's going to do. They look at Australia as kind of like without having to put all the money, because if you launch like a big product, in fact, I think they even like tested like clear Pepsi there first or something like that. So maybe it doesn't always work out. But with a smaller investment, they can get a whole country campaign going, see if it works. If it does, then they bring it to America. So yeah, it's a good strategy. I don't know specifically that's the case of Tavistock in the UK, but I don't think would be too crazy. And it would be in line with how ahead they are in the no guns and degeneracy and all that stuff. And replacement. Homestead Bear, $5. Hey, Devin Stack, I just joined. Have you made any further plans on the movie? Well, I've been writing outlines is all I've been doing. But it's going to happen. And I have received some emails from some of you asking to be a part of it. I'm keeping all your email addresses and stuff. I'm checking all those emails out. And I'll let you know when I know more. And I'm trying to hunt down a few core actors that can kind of carry the film, like the meat of it, and then a lot of it's going to be outsourced to you guys. With some direction, but really not like a ton. And I might even do, because I don't want to I might even do like an example, right? Like just post like an example somewhere of kind of what we're looking for. But I don't even think we need to do that. because I think people are going to get it. But right now I'm at the outline phase because what I'm trying to do is make it easy, not just for us to actually accomplish the core part of it, but make it easy for what I'm asking for from you guys to get it done. You know what I mean? Like if I don't want to ask for something that you get, I know how hard it is to shoot something that's good, and I don't want to over ask, and then I want to make it something that a lot of people can. I'd rather have a lot of submissions to choose from, and I don't want to make it this difficult ask. I want to get something that's easy for people to actually be creative and come up with something good without having to invest a lot of resources into it, and actually give you a bit more of a fighting chance of actually producing something good. Dean Raja, fight the good fight, finish the race, keep the faith. Agree. And thank you. Jason Reed, $2. Check out Bond Robin on YouTube. Okay, I don't know. I've never heard of that. Rising Jake, $5. All right, real talk, guys. We need to turn to no other person for our own salvation than ourselves. Still glad you are there, Sir Stack. Keep going. Well, and God, I think. Elfin, $4.99. If you go on Jesse Lee Peterson's radio show, would he call you a beta male or an alpha male? Have you forgiven your mama and returned to your father? Well, I'm not sure what that. I haven't watched any of his shows. I know the memes, but I've never watched any of his shows, so I'm not sure what that last part means. I would like to think. I think in how I don't think of myself as like some super alpha by any means, but like I'm also certainly not a beta. The way that he uses that term, at least. So yeah, I don't know if it had me on the show. He's a cool guy. I mean, he's done. I've posted the clips of his show on my Instagram. He's pretty based. And he's been based for like a long time too. He's not like new to the fold. Although it was fun watching, because one thing he didn't know about until recently was the Talmud. When he found out about the Talmud, like I think his world view changed a little bit. But yeah, he's pretty based. Red Ritram, $5. Is your book available on Barnes & Noble still or other websites? If so, how much is it? It is on Barnes & Noble. Link is in the description. And it's $13.37. And maybe a handful of people will get that. And I know I could have charged slightly over $1 more for another number that people would like, but I want to pass the savings on to you. Machiavelli sucks, $1.99. No, we are on the last stages of J Rule. Yeah, I mean, I think that we'll see how that goes. I think that a lot of it depends on what happens with China. You know, because you got to what is the chameleon aspect of Jewish people in the West is that not only do we have very open societies that are very low in in-group preference and very welcoming of outsiders and all that fun stuff, but a lot, I mean, I know to the trained eye it's easy to spot people who come from Jewish backgrounds, and obviously with last names and stuff like that, but you'd be surprised. Like, a lot of people just have no, I mean, especially if they're not white. You know, like if you ask a Hispanic person what color Epstein is, or what race Epstein is, they're going to say he's white. You know what I mean? So, but that doesn't work in China. You can't have that kind of stealth shield, that the cloak of invisibility doesn't work in Asian countries. And they also don't care about the Holocaust. Like, China doesn't give a fuck about the Holocaust. I mean, those numbers are pretty low for, even if you take the official numbers, by Chinese standards, they don't care at all. And even if they were high, they wouldn't care. It's just not part of they just don't care about that stuff. So a lot of it's going to depend on what happens with China, I think. And a lot of it's going to depend on what happens in the West in terms of if there is any kind of big conflicts that result that are results of the forced multiculturalism, or economic problems. I mean, to me, it's such an unknown right now. I don't like making predictions, and there is room to fail. If you think that you're just going to win no matter what, you probably won't. That's being overconfident. And as we've seen, I mean, you don't rule for a century or more because you're bad at it. You know what I mean? I mean, influencing some of the most innovative, creative people to have ever walked the earth to the degree that they have over the last century or so, that was not an easy feat. So you can't just assume that that because there is a change. I think there is a change in the winds, if you will. But the same thing happened 70 some odd years ago, and look how that turned out. you know, how many Europeans died? I mean, so many Europeans died. So we could have another catastrophic war like World War II, where just lots of us get slaughtered. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I hate making predictions because I just don't know how things are going to work out. And it doesn't look, at least for right now, it looks better, I think, every day, a little bit, as more and more people start to get it. But it doesn't look good yet. Because, again, we're not imposing costs. Until we're imposing costs and getting what we want, we don't have power. All right. S. Payne, I'd do makeup and volunteer. Well, if we were doing studio stuff, that'd be awesome, because that is an important aspect a lot of people overlook. I appreciate the offer, but a lot of this is going to be found footage done remotely. But you could use makeup on your own. Like if you do submit a clip, you could certainly do that. Caden Adams, $2, nothing. Thank you for the support. Second account. Oh, awesome. $99.99 dollars. Here is a couple bucks for being the first to truly red pill me. Well, I really appreciate that support. That's awesome. Like I said, I can't do without you guys, and I need to do it. I need to do more streams when I'm not in a position to do more scripted videos. And I do plan on doing that, especially with the movie stuff, because that's one thing too, is I got to keep people motivated to do it. And it keeps me motivated to do it too, honestly. If I'm just here, especially if I don't go to town, like because there's little stretches where I don't like interact with a whole lot of people, I'll just be honest. And because, I'm stuck doing like well, right now I'm stripping like paint and pressure washing like rat shit out of stuff, and like doing like gross outdoor stuff that takes a long time, and by myself, and it's exhausting to some extent. And yeah, I mean, and then of course I'm keeping up with Twitter and Instagram and all this other stuff, and I'm still watching a lot of YouTube stuff from other people, and just keeping up with what's going on, and it feels good to do these streams. Like I said, as much as I kind of dread them a little bit, and I don't look, I it gives me a little anxiety doing it. And again, not for the reasons I'm not nervous about talking in front of people. I know that there's over 1,000 people here, and that doesn't bother me at all. That's not the issue. It's about I don't want to get something wrong, or it's yeah, I just don't want to get something wrong. And but it's helpful to do these. It keeps me motivated. It keeps you guys in touch with what's going on, and with like the movie and stuff like that. So I'll definitely have to make this a regular thing. And it's really not that hard to come up with subjects, because there's a lot of times I make a lot of notes. And in fact, if you've got a memory like mine from years of pot smoking, or or for whatever reason that you have that Swiss cheese memory, I don't know if that's I smoked a lot of pot in high school and stuff, and I don't know if that could very well be why my memory is how it is. But if you have that kind of a memory, the way to I mean, you got to take notes. Like, I was terrible at taking notes in school, but it's great now, because you'd be surprised at how many like cool things. And sometimes I use Twitter like that. I'll be like, oh, I just thought of something cool. I'm gonna tell everyone on Twitter. And sometimes it's not as cool as you think. But always keep notes, and you'll be surprised at what comes out of it. Because that's what I did for this stream. Even I took a few notes about what I was thinking about. Just like I was talking about the stuff on Instagram, and just the power dynamics and all that stuff. So anyway, I'm going to wrap things up. Got one last one. Got two real quick ones. Caden Adams, $2. Doing great, kid. Nobody can touch you. Appreciate it. L Finn, $1.99. Can you ban the uppity femoids in chat? I have not even been looking at regular chat. I'm going to have to figure out how to wrench people, and then we can have some thought patrolling going on, that I don't have to do it. Here, I'm going to wrench someone real quick. Get ready, Spice Bear. Unless she's one of the uppity femoids. How do I add? I think I did that right. All right. No, I'll have to wrench a few people, and then you guys can moderate chat. I just don't. I can't keep an eye on that and figure it all out. All right, got $1 from S Payne again, and then Red Pill Jones, $4.99. Boomer Hero, I got Red Pill before the Matrix in family court. Watch the docu Divorce Corp for full disclosure. What's your thought on no fault divorce? I think it was a horrible idea. And definitely think that that was one of many things that made divorce go haywire in this country. But all right, look, one more super chat. Mac, $10. Would you please do a chat with Turd Flinging Monk at some point? I have no idea who that is. Have them get a hold of me on Twitter. Twitter's probably the best place to get a hold of me. Or, you know what? And this goes to the other guy that wanted me to be on his channel. I forget your name. Email me at evilhillary@protonmail.com. And that way I don't forget. Because I might not respond a lot on those emails, but I do get them. And I do read them. So I can't always respond to everybody, but I do read them if you email me there. At least for right now. Right now I'm not getting like an avalanche of emails there. The reason I don't have DMs open on Twitter and I don't respond to DMs on Instagram, it's just a flood. But if you take the time to email me, there's a good chance I'll see it. So, yeah, email me that or have them email me. I don't know. I'll have to check out their channel. I don't know who that is. And again, I'm not trying to insult them. I just don't. I learn about new channels all the time. And I'm already subscribed to like 50. Although like 20 of them are banned now. So maybe it's like 30 accounts. So anyway, thanks everybody for listening to me ramble on for almost 3 hours. It's been a long stream. And I hope you enjoyed looking at a impaled bee that entire time with her tongue sticking out, trying to get that nectar. Think of a metaphor for that. Trying to get that nectar, flying in, about to get it, impaled. Crazy how that happened, huh? So, anyway, you guys have a good night. For BlackPilled, I am Devin Stack.